morning, folks. Another soap from Yulay, Soap of the Gods. This is a scent that's got tobacco, spice, vanilla, a woodsy smell to it. I got the scent there off to the side, down below. That's what the soap looks like. Soft. It's good for a Friday, to start out on a Friday with a tobacco scent. At least I think so. I've got the alum block complete with the rubber band. Humphreys Witch Hazel with lilac, and I'm tongue-tied this morning. And I got the matching aftershave here. And just like all the rest of her aftershaves, you will have to give it a good shake before you apply it. The lather's been whipped up here. Distinctive goat's wooden bowl here. Walnut. That's what it looks like. It's got grooves all the way through there. This brush is by the way of strike gold shave. This is a fuller vintage brush with a badger knot. Very soft tips. And if you're not familiar with Fuller, they put their naming on the bottom. And of course, with this being a vintage one, you can just barely make out part of what's been put on the bottom there. And my clown fruit, Dirty Clown, is getting very small. But we'll go ahead and get started and get it applied here. The Shavette of the day is sometimes referred to as IBC, Irving Barber Company. And down below I have a link to Spencer's video. He shaved with IBC, and partway through his video he shows you some blades that the IBC can handle, how to install it. This particular shaver is very unique in that it will take a DE blade, ears itching, a DE blade snapped in half. It will take a feather artist club blade, which is what I'm using today, a super. The one that was in the shave yesterday. And it'll also take mini hair shaper blades, in other words, the injector blades. Well, there's not much left there. And when you go to visit their website, if you're interested in something like this, or just the fact that you can practically build one from scratch, all the parts that you would need in case you should happen to lose a part or need to replace a part, all of them are there. You can build it from scratch. So if you like the idea of having different colors but you didn't want to buy all of the shaver, for instance, it is possible to get the scales by themselves, and you can swap out the scales, and that's, in other words, you don't have to buy the whole shaver. And the version I have is chrome. Part of the loading mechanism is magnetic to help with the loading, and the version I like the chrome version. Oddly enough, it is also the cheapest version. If you want some colors or something different to it, you'll have to pay just a little bit more. I think the difference is only like $3, so it's not terrible. But I just found it that my favorite, in other words, something shiny, is the cheapest one. I have been struggling with the top 5 Shavettes because I do like the Vanta and the Focus Evolution because it covers the toe and the heel. It's very easy for me to get a shave with that one. It's both of those shavers are very good. But I also have a Focus Slim, that I'll be shaving with, and also the Parker SRX. Really like that shaver, but since there's 5, it is really tough to narrow it down because I like them for various different reasons. The as far as I could tell, the availability of these are pretty, well, in other words, they have them in stock on the website. And from time to time, somebody will be selling one. And I should say, of all the shavers that I have in the way of being a Shavette, the IBC is the heaviest. And I don't know what the weight is, but face it, it's all metal. And it weighs a bit. But with that in mind, I subscribe to the idea that of letting the weight of the razor and of the shaver and the sharpness of the razor do the work. With this being Friday for me, and a 3-day weekend, this weekend could be fun. A little bit more time in making a video. You can kind of tell this really is an easy shaver to use. At least it is for me. The screws there at the pivot point will take 2 common screwdrivers. I have not had mine apart, and I haven't had a need to tighten it up. So I'm going to mention this. If you should decide to get one of these from the website, or even if you go ahead and order, get one from a buy-sell trade type situation, you're probably at some point in time going to want to order. You'll see some clear plastic washers. That's where it goes at the pivot point. You're probably going to want to get some of those if you order from the website, because when you in other words, after a while, those are going to start to wear out. And the fact that you got those 2 screws there, it'll take a common screwdriver. You can tighten it up if it gets a little floppy for you. To me, that's a good selling point. The Ren that I got off of eBay for, what was it, $7.33 or something like that. That was one of the things that I thought that was really interesting. It looks like there's a way to tighten it up at the pivot point so it's not so floppy, if that's an issue for you. And the fact that you can, like I say, if you just want to have a different color from time to time, you can just buy the scales and swap it out like that. I will mention this also. It seems like it would be something a person might think about when you're messing around with this particular kind of Shavette, or any Shavette that's like this, or another shaver like Supply, the injector. If you're messing around with either one of those, make sure you got the plug in your sink. words, messing around with the screw and dropping that screw in the sink. But I hope you kept the plug in. Or at least have an extra one, however you want to look at it. I've paid very close attention to that sort of thing when I'm messing around with the thumb screw there. It's not too tough, but you know, one day it's probably going to happen. You're going to drop it, so hopefully you have the plug in the sink, that or it'll go on the floor and you'll be able to find it before you step on it. I'm sure it's going to feel like a Lego if you do. If you've ever had that experience. I would have to say probably the weight is going to be somebody's biggest drawback, besides the price. I was trying to think. This is the most expensive shaver I have in the way of a Shavette. It's not cheap. But you take care of it. In other words, don't leave it in water, soap all over it, and it doesn't take that long for me to clean it up. It's just a quick cleanup. But like I do with everything else, I just wipe it off real quick and put it away, and it's a done deal. It's just a beautiful shaver in my opinion. I like chrome. Parker SRX, it is a beautiful shaver. It's a heavyweight also in the way of Shavettes. It's the heaviest one Parker has in their Shavette lineup. It looks really nice. Just because of the weight and maybe even the price, depending on where you are with your budget, your ideas of how much you're going to spend. This one here did take me a good moment to decide. A lot of thinking, in other words. Looking into it. Just the idea though that it will take such a variety of blades. Whatever blade I felt like using, it would be able to use it. When you face it, a DE snapped in half, mini hair shaper blade or injector blade, feather artist club blade. You should be able to find a blade that works well for you. I will mention, probably should mention this with this particular shaver, that because of all those blades I just mentioned being different lengths, the Artist Club will come full length. So in other words, anything else you use, the injector blade or a DE blade snapped in half, it will be shorter. So you will have to get past the thought that part of this might be removing the shaving cream before you're ready for it to be removed. In other words, it'll get removed without the blade being there. And that's something you'll have to gauge when you're shaving, and for some folks that may not work well. I have trying to remember exactly how to pronounce it. I think it's pronounced a Sanguine Cool Cut. I think the model number is 9. And another one made by Persona or whatever name it's going by nowadays, where it takes an injector blade. It's a really nice, shaver. I mean, as it goes for the look, the weight, how it feels in the hand, except for the fact that there's that part about that much of the shaver where the blade's not there, but it'll remove your shaving cream before you get to it with the blade. And for me, that's a hard thing for me to get past. I get good shaves with it, don't have those kind of issues, but boy, I'm not too happy with it removing my shaving cream before my blade gets there. The slickness is still there, so I don't have quite that issue, but it's just one of those things to keep in mind when you're picking out a shaver. You're on a small budget, and a lot of this, face it, this was accumulated over time. It didn't happen overnight. And it's kind of one of those things that, for me, I set aside a certain amount of money over a period of time, and then that's how I ended up with this IBC shaver. But it's, for me, I like the heavyweight. I like it. Like I say, you can rebuild the whole thing from scratch. It reminds me of back in the day. I can remember looking at a J.C. Whitney catalog. For those that aren't old enough, it's a catalog that's got all kinds of stuff in there, especially automotive. And I can remember the thought in my mind was I could see all the VW Beetle parts in there, thinking that I could probably build one from scratch straight from the catalog. For those that are old enough to know what I'm talking about. Really enjoyed looking at those catalogs. I mean, because they're thick, they've got everything in there imaginable. As a kid, that's one way of passing time. Face it, when I was growing up, for the most part, cable was not available. It was available in parts of the world, yes, just not available in my house until I got somewhat older. So, being able to see a J.C. Whitney catalog and thumbing through it and dreaming, if you will, the day that I'm going to finally have a car is pretty cool. Like I said, this particular scent has a spice to it, and if you're sensitive to spices, that would be something to pay attention to. Once again, Van Yulay's aftershaves do not contain alcohol, but as opposed to witch hazel. And if spice is a problem for you in the way of irritation, you may not like this one because of that. Or you might like the scent, just that the spice in there might bother their skin. The one that comes to mind that people seem to have an issue with from time to time, I would read, is, I think how you pronounce it is Ogallala. It's comes from Nebraska, and they have it's a bay rum. They have different versions of it. It's got some spice in there, and that spice may have a tendency to irritate somebody's skin. For me, it's works just fine. If I get a little bit of irritation, it's just for a moment. By the time I finish cleaning up everything and heading out of the bathroom, whatever tingling or irritation I thought I was feeling, it's gone. So it doesn't last very long for me. But for those, that have an issue with it, this may not be one for you, because it does have some spice. I can feel it. And for me, it doesn't feel bad, but I know it's there. I can feel it. But boy, this scent, I can smell the spice, the tobacco. I really like this scent. Hope everybody's doing well. Stay safe and smooth shaves to you.